The storm that struck Newcastle that Sunday, November 9, 2025, did not arrive suddenly. It announced itself gradually, almost deceptively, with a gray heaviness that settled over the city early in the morning. Residents described the sky as unnaturally still, with clouds hanging low over the foothills of the Drakensberg mountains. By midday, humidity thickened the air, and a faint rumble began to echo across the horizon. Most assumed it would be another routine summer storm, intense, brief, and familiar. But by mid-afternoon, the calm dissolved. Sheets of rain began slamming against rooftops, first rhythmically, then with force, and finally with a violence that made windows tremble. At the same time, large hailstones began to crash onto cars and pavements, bouncing off windshields and puddles. Within minutes, gutters overflowed, storm drains gurgled under pressure, and water cascaded over pavements in swirling currents. Trees swayed under the weight of the wind and hail. Lightning forked across the sky in sharp white flashes, repeatedly, as if tearing the clouds open. For residents and workers inside the La Gratitude retirement home, the noise alone was alarming: thundering roof impacts, rattling windows, and the unmistakable sound of running water where water should never be. At first, they noticed puddles forming near the main entrance. Then, water seeped under doors. Staff placed towels along thresholds, hoping to slow the intrusion. But by then, the stormwater systems outside were already overwhelmed. Streams became channels. Channels became rivers. And within a shockingly short time, the entire ground floor was swallowed by rising floodwater. In the frail care wing, elderly residents, some bedridden, some in wheelchairs, began panicking as the lights flickered. The building creaked under the relentless pressure of rain, hail, and wind. Ceiling tiles bowed inward. Caregivers rushed from room to room, assessing mobility needs and deciding who needed to be moved first. The water was ice cold. It surged across the tiled floors, carrying debris, leaves, muddy currents, and chunks of hail. Chairs tipped over. A walker floated away. Caregivers rolled up their trousers, waded through water climbing up to their shins, then their knees, then their thighs. At the same moment, emergency lines across Newcastle lit up. Fire departments, ambulance control rooms, and rescue coordinators received nearly simultaneous calls: "The water is inside the building. We can't reach the exit. The roof is leaking, it might collapse. We have disabled residents who cannot walk." Responders snapped into action, dispatching vehicles, boats where possible, and personnel equipped for swift water rescue. But access roads themselves were transforming rapidly into obstacles. When teams attempted to reach the retirement home, they found sections of roadway submerged under fast-moving water, pavements lifted, and mudslides blocking smaller streets. Rescue workers had no choice but to abandon their vehicles at safer points and continue on foot. They moved through waist-deep water, pushing against strong currents. Some held on to ropes anchored to street signs to keep their balance. Others carried medical bags above their heads to keep them dry. Rain and hail beat mercilessly against their backs, and visibility was reduced to only a few meters. When they reached the entrance of the first care facility, they found staff desperately trying to guide residents toward the upper floors. Some elderly residents cried in confusion, unable to understand why water was rushing around their ankles. Others clung to caregivers, trembling and asking if they were going to drown. Inside the building, conditions were deteriorating rapidly. The rain and hail were so heavy that water infiltrated through the roof. A portion of ceiling plaster collapsed in a frail care room, sending water and hail-laden debris pouring onto a bed. Rescuers stepped in just in time to transfer the resident, still connected to medical tubing, away from the danger zone. Furniture floated toward the hallways. Mattresses soaked up water like sponges. Personal belongings, photographs, hearing aids, slippers, rosaries, drifted aimlessly across the rooms. Rescuers formed human chains to stabilize their footing as they carried fragile residents to safety. Some residents were lifted in blankets used as makeshift stretchers. In wheelchairs, rescuers had to tilt the chairs backward to prevent water from flooding the seating. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic, frightening, and unreal. And still, the storm intensified. Meanwhile, across Newcastle, the city struggled to cope. Major intersections vanished underwater. Vehicles stalled mid-commute. Shop owners rushed to stack sandbags at their doors. Families watched from their windows as their gardens disappeared beneath swirling brown water. Emergency radio chatter became relentless. Reports of washed-out roads, vehicles stuck in rising water, blocked drainage systems, and widespread power outages.
Ground floors.
Inside the municipality's control center, engineers and disaster coordinators worked late into the night. Phone lines buzzed with updates from field teams. Maps were spread across tables, tracking which areas were most inundated. Technicians monitored live feeds from CCTV cameras, many of which were distorted by heavy rainfall and hail. Several electrical substations flooded, plunging neighborhoods into darkness. Teams attempted to isolate circuits to prevent electrical fires, while field engineers navigated through flooded and debris-strewn streets to access critical infrastructure. The Newcastle municipality issued public alerts urging people to remain indoors. Do not leave your homes unless it is a life-threatening emergency. The CBD is inaccessible. Stay away from rivers, culverts, and flooded roads. Even those warnings struggled to reach some residents due to network outages. Local WhatsApp community groups turned into real-time emergency channels. Messages came in every few seconds. My garage is flooding. Is Boundary Street open? We need help. Water is coming in through the windows. The roads to the CBD are gone. Videos circulated showing water blasting through driveways, manhole covers erupting like geysers, hailstones bouncing off vehicles, and cars half submerged. Back at the care facilities, the rescue operation entered its most critical phase. Emergency teams had to split their personnel between both heavily affected buildings. With the storm showing no sign of weakening, time became the enemy. Some residents were immobile, others required oxygen tanks, several were extremely frail. Every movement had to be coordinated, gentle and steady, yet rapid enough to outrun the rising floodwater. Rescuers reported that each step felt like walking through cement. The mud, hail, and debris dragged at their boots. A broken cabinet floated into a hallway, colliding with a rescuer's legs. Another rescuer nearly slipped on submerged tiles made slick by water and hail. Generators were brought in to power essential medical devices. Staff worked shoulder to shoulder with emergency responders, refusing to leave their residents despite dangerous conditions. In the most flooded areas, rescuers formed a two-person carry system. One held the resident's upper body, the other supported the legs. In one case, a bedridden resident was transported on a plastic table that floated just enough to allow movement without submerging them. Outside, waiting ambulances transported residents to temporary shelters established in community halls, churches, and medical centers located on higher ground.